On March 18, 1925, a funnel descended from a thunderstorm in eastern Missouri, and over the next 3.5 hours, 695 people would perish along the tornado's path, marking it as one of the deadliest weather events in American history. During March, Twister Talk will present a series of shows marking the 100th anniversary of this tragic event. We'll take a look at the day itself and discuss recent research detailing how this unfolded and other tornadoes that also occurred that same day. We'll also talk with author Angela Mason, whose book, Death Rides the Sky, chronicles what occurred that March afternoon from those who survived the tornado and the impact felt that day in their own words. That's Twister Talk with Gary, Sue, and Brandon on Podbean. And don't forget to check out our Facebook page.
Right in front of us is tearing something apart right now. Big tire flat. Shoot, I think a semi got flipped. Are you okay? Hey, there's big rail cover. We gotta go, sir. Hang in the cut.
Gary, we're in Newcastle right now, and north of us, thing is still on the ground. There's lots of debris in the air right now. Lots.
You need to be below ground shelter.
I hate Oklahoma.
You ever wondered, like, if you were going to the drive-thru at the time and a tornado hit the drive-thru as you were there, and you had the gall to act, "Where's my fries?" after the storm was gone.
Absolutely, I would do that. You know.
My fries. Well, your fries are over there.
Your fries are in the next county, ma'am.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of a great story. A friend of mine whose name was John. I used to work with John at Half Price Books. And he used to tell this great story about being behind somebody at the drive-thru at Wendy's, and the person just sat there and sat there and sat there. And John finally figured out what was happening, and he got out of his car and. His car was fascinating. All of the locks had been drilled out, so basically it was kind of taped together. Wow. So anyway, he was he's a very culpable man. So basically he walked forward to the car and said, "You do know you're trying to order at the newspaper box."
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Fast food is like that. You know, either your food is like in the next county, or it's just you're not going to get food at all because you're a complete idiot.
Newspaper box.
Yeah. That was back when, now for our younger people here, we need to explain that you used to be able to buy newspapers from a box.
Yep.
And they probably don't, I don't know if they have those anymore.
I thought I see some occasionally, but I could see it. Well, I thought they was just there to read the headlines while they got my order. Well, it's Twister Talk. I'm Gary.
I'm Sue.
Oh, boy.
We're trying to break the ice here.
Trying to break the ice because it's cold here today.
It is quite chilly here.
Quite chilly, kind of unpleasant a little bit.
Here at Twister Talk HQ, it is it's
60s
chilly.
last week.
Yeah, what the heck?
It'll be 60 again on Tuesday. I know.
It's a long time to wait.
Crazy weather. But then again, over the last couple of years, I think that's all we get. I think we get like 5 normal days a year, and then we're done.
It's a bit unpredictable at times.
Still remember the eclipse, though. That was great.
Oh, and the Aurora Borealis.
Oh, that was great. So anyway.
Great stuff.
So.
And, of course, what we're going to talk about today.
Did we say we were Twister Talk?
We did say we were Twister Talk.
That's right, we did. Okay, we can move on.
And, of course, last year's Twister Count.
That's right. Through many painstaking memories and research, we have come through our list of tornadoes for last year. We went out and counted each one of them individually.
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
I must have missed that. Yeah. Did Brandon do that? Or?
Brandon did that too. Yeah, and in fact, we haven't heard from him yet. I think he's somewhere in the Carolinas checking a couple. Brandon, where are you? I'm in Florida now.
I'm still looking for this tornado.
I'm on the beach.
I'm on the beach.
Just want to let you know.
That's great.
Julie's going, "You never take me anywhere." So
the beach.
The beach. Anyway, so we've got this again, a very interesting year tornado-wise.
Just a very curious year.
It was a strange year.
It was.
2024 was one for the books with crazy hurricanes and some. The winter, even rolling into 2025, the winter was kind of crazy in places normally isn't crazy. Yeah. So anyway, but we're going to take a look at the tornado count for 2024 because a lot of storms, and in fact, one of the busier years.
The number 2 year since they've been keeping track, and I'm not exactly sure how long that is, but I would think that would go back into the 1950s.
Yes, from 1950 through 2024. Yeah. So that's a lot of storms.
So this was actually the number 2 year, and yet it had many curiosities because we had a couple of substantial regional outbreaks. Mm-hmm. We also had we also had 3 hurricanes that produced pretty good amounts of tornadoes. But one of the kind of nice things about this year is that the death toll, thankfully, was actually pretty low.
Yeah, it really was.
Particularly for the number of tornadoes we had.
Yeah, the total for this year was 1,473 confirmed tornado reports.
And of course, that's always subject to correction.
Right. That's to date. So basically, 1,473. Now, 2004 is considered the record.
1,817.
Man, that's a lot of tornadoes.
That's a lot of tornadoes.
Now, that's above the average of from 1991 to 2010 of 1,225 tornadoes. So, of course, and Sue, hard to believe the most prolific months during 2024 tornadoes were what?
April, May, June, July, and December.
That's right.
That last month is a little odd, but
yeah.
April, May, June, and July, pretty normal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I was surprised they had them in April. Really?
Shocker.
Come on. Yeah, really. That's like, something that people go, years ago, someone said, I didn't know May was such a busy month. I was like,
Where have you been?
Are you in a room somewhere with a sensory deprivation tank or something?
He's sitting in the bunker with Vice President Cheney, who I think might still be in a bunker someplace. I don't know.
Really probably should let him know you can come out now.
I haven't seen him for a while.
So anyway, the tornado went by your house and you couldn't tell it was a bad year.
It's just strange.
Yeah, really. So again, April, May, June, and July, and December. Unfortunately, December had some tornadoes in December. Thankfully, so I remember we talked about this severe weather. They weren't as bad as they could have been. Now there were tornadoes.
No.
I remember at one time they were concerned it was going to be a massive outbreak. It wasn't. So thank the Lord for that. That's good. So anyway,
the year started out kind of weird though.
Oh yeah, January was strange. I remember, like we've talked about, that's the first time I can remember any severe weather watch in Ohio.
Yeah.
Severe thunderstorm watch in January.
Yeah, and it's also worth remembering that up into April sometime, the number one state in the union for tornadoes was Ohio.
Ohio. We were number one.
With a bullet.
With a bullet. We are number one. We're number one. There's people out there with little tornado pennant flags, but we shut them down really quick.
Yeah, they're kind of weird.
Yeah. We got a lot of tornado. No, that's not a good thing to celebrate.
We actually ended up at number 10.
Yeah, number 10.
But there was a while we were leading the nation.
Now, I have friends that actually experienced some of those tornadoes going by their homestead.
Yes, indeed.
My dear friend Dan McLaughlin, unfortunately, passed late last year. Excuse me. Dan said him and his wife were watching the tornado go through the farmland behind their home. It was very interesting just watching this thing whiz by. Another person, my dear friend Pastor Tim, who work with him at Chapel of Rest Church Columbus, he said their one basically went almost through their backyard.
Oh man!
And he said it just was something, just watching everything whirling and spinning up. He said it was a very strange. He said it was a strange sight because you just. They were close enough. Thankfully, it wasn't damaged. It was only an EF1. But he said just to see everything just spinning and trees and everything. Yeah. He said it was unreal because it took place again right at night or right at dusk and everything. It just really said it was just hard to put into words. And he was blown away by it. I said, well, tornadoes will do that to you.
Yeah.
We've all seen them. And so, have you ever seen one live?
Yes, I have seen a tornado, but it was kind of an F0 type tornado.
Okay.
And the very funny thing is I was living near a town in northwest Ohio called White House, and we were having a storm, and I was looking outside, and I saw this whirl going by in the field next to our house, and I was kind of like, what in the hell was that? And then I later found out that a barn, a road behind us had the roof torn off. So it's like, yeah, it was an F0 tornado.
Wow. Now, you see, I remember two incidents real quick. February of 1971, I was in junior high school. We were actually rehearsing for the play The Miracle Worker. The rehearsals were over and they were letting us go for the afternoon, and we come outside and we hear something like a train, and I'm going, that's just a really weird sound. So we looked toward actually where I lived at the time, and this huge wall cloud. I mean, you could tell it was a wall. It was like an anchor hanging down, and you could hear the rumbling in it. And I think there was a funnel, but it wasn't touching down at the time. But then everybody was watching it, and then everybody I said, oh, I think that's part of a thunderstorm with a tornado in it. And everybody goes, we gotta go home. Everybody's like, we gotta go home. We gotta go home. And everybody was scared. And I thought I probably shouldn't have said anything. But by the time I got to the house, it had moved to the northeast. But I could still see the wall cloud. I could still actually see like little tendrils hanging down, but it didn't touch down. My dad did touch down where he worked. He said the warehouse across the street, the whole side of the building just disappeared. He said
they do that.
Yeah,
warehouses are very lightly built.
Yeah, he was watching. He said that was really, he says, very concerning. And then, of course, May of 1973. That was the month of May. If you're old folks like we are, remember on Tuesdays and Fridays there were tornado watches.
I'm not.
I know. Tuesdays and Fridays in Columbus there were tornado watches, and most of the time there was a tornado with them. Yeah. It was a really, really wild spring. May and June were like that here in Ohio.
Wild.
But anyway, we were driving down. We were picking up a stereo that someone had given to my dad, and we were going to see what we could do with it. We didn't do anything with it because, unfortunately, it was kind of junky. So anyway, we had a better system anyway. So anyway, when we were driving, we're going right down Refugee Road towards 33, and we look out to the west and go, what is that? And then I realized that that's a tornado, and my dad goes, yes, it is. And we were driving the company he worked for had a pickup. So we were driving the company. And I mean, he floored that thing and we whipped home. And my brother and I have talked about this in the past. That was the only time I saw my dad really concerned about the weather. Yeah. And so we were watching it. And I remember reading books about tornadoes and everything. I said, well, right now, Dad, as long as it's raining, of course, I didn't know that now they can be rain wrapped, but back then, as long as it's raining and everything, usually you're okay. If the rain stops suddenly, that's when you got to worry. And we could see the dark mass going to our south over Eastland. I don't know if you remember the people at Eastland Mall had to go down to the basement areas. Oh, yeah. And then it went south of Eastland, but it did damage some homes in the Groveport area. And I remember coming out after the storm stopped, and I could looking to the east-northeast, I could see this huge wall cloud. This thing I was sitting there going, realize that thing is turning. It took a moment to sit there and go, that sucker is moving, man. Yeah. And it was. Fortunately, it didn't touch down again, but that was I've seen a couple since then. But that was a unique experience.
It's kind of ironic that. That was in 1973, and even as we speak, they are tearing Eastland down. Yes,
Eastland Mall has been there since 1968, and it is now gone. It's been bulldozed. Yep. Probably going to put a White Castle there, Shakely's. I don't know what they're going to build.
Probably something like a frickin' Buc-ee's or something.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to put there.
Because we're being invaded by Buc-ee's here.
Yes, we are. Every time you look around, there's one.
There's a new Buc-ee's. I do have to give Buc-ee's credit is they have free air.
Yeah.
And the pumps work. So,
that's right.
Kudos to Buc-ee's for that.
Yes, that's right. There may be a Buc-ee in your backyard one day, you don't know?
That would not surprise me.
All right. So anyway, we're so far off the track now.
We are way off the beaten track.
We just dove in deep on this.
We
anyway,
did.
So anyhow, we're talking about the fact there are 1,473 tornadoes in the United States on 2024. And so that's a lot. But there were some major outbreaks, Sue, and I think we need to talk about some of those, the big days that caused a lot of issues. And
really kind of two kinds of outbreaks, because you have, classic tornado outbreaks. But then we also had Beryl, Milton, and what was the other one called? Helene, thank you. There were so many hurricanes last year that I kind of have... They kind of joined together after a while.
They do. Everything ran together.
Helene and Milton basically covered much of the same territory.
Well, they sure did. So let's go ahead and, Sue, go ahead and start with the outbreak from April this year.
Yeah, April, that actually in some ways was one of the most photogenic and frightening outbreaks of the year, because that's the one where it produced at least 40 EF0s, 59 EF1s, 16 EF2s, 8 EF3s, 1 EF4. In fact, I'm kind of surprised there was only one EF4, because I tell you, some of those tornadoes looked really, really frighteningly strong. One big tornado just missed Lincoln, Nebraska. The same storm also caused a mile-wide tornado that heavily damaged the towns of Elkhorn, Bennington, and Blair, which are all on the outskirts of Omaha.
Right.
Those were pretty nasty-looking tornadoes, I must say. And I think I still kind of wonder about the rating of that one.
Just some of these look. They just now you can't, of course, you can't base it on looks, but the way everything was moving around in the videos I saw, I would be very surprised if it didn't peak at EF5 strength some part during its. The atmospheric conditions were just perfect for that.
Yeah, they really were. And the National Weather Service office in Omaha certainly had a very exciting day. They issued 48 tornado warnings on April 26th, the most they have ever issued on a single day. The next day, there was an EF4 in Marietta, Oklahoma, which damaged a big warehouse.
Yep.
That was quite catastrophic. During May, 527 confirmed tornado reports. There was another big outbreak at the very beginning of May. It produced at least, now of course the numbers go up and down, it produced at least 61 EF0s, 79 EF1s, 13 EF2s, 3 EF5s,
EF4s.
I'm sorry, 3 EF3s, 1 EF4, and dozens of what they refer to as EFUs, which are unrated or unknown. A lot of damage to homes, businesses, vehicles, farms, infrastructure. The towns of Barnsdall and Bartlesville, Oklahoma, were both impacted by a violent EF4 tornado that caused a lot of damage in those places.
Yes, that was a pretty widespread outbreak, too. It covered Oklahoma.
Probably the most widespread outbreak of the year, I think.
Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And as always, our dear friend Brandon in the Carolinas said, and all the weather always stopped at our doorstep. He said it was. He
does seem to, doesn't it?
He said there could be havoc everywhere. Comes off those Appalachians, and we're done. But he said it was interesting though. The first time I've seen the EFU mentioned, I've seen it before in
it seems like there's a lot that just did not get rated for one reason or another.
Well, they couldn't determine the damage path, or they could determine the damage path, but if it didn't hit anything,
that's the trouble. They still have problems in rating tornadoes that go over open country and don't hit anything solid enough to rate.
Right.
Which is a problem.
So the outbreak on May 6th and 9th, 178 tornadoes. But then on May 19th to the 26th.
That was a good size outbreak,
This one really ramped it up.
Yeah. 259 tornadoes. 65 EF0s, 105 EF1s, which is awfully impressive, 20 EF2s, 12 EF3s, 1 EF4, and more than a dozen EFUs. Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Kentucky all had tornadoes. And on the 21st, an EF4 sliced across Iowa and killed 5 people.
That's right. That was a multi-day event, too. The thing was, this went on the 19th and didn't end until the 26th. And every day, we have to remember that every day there was severe weather.
Yeah.
That whole time. Every day there was some form of severe weather. It peaked on the 21st, and the 21st was a really bad day. And again, I think there was some other tornadoes on the 26th.
It must have been very tedious after a while.
It sure was. Now, in June 5th, and 6th, numerous tornadoes formed across Maryland, West Virginia, Ohio, and Michigan. Now, these were this was the outbreak, or the Midwest or East, near Northeast outbreak that we had. Again, let me see here. Looking at, there were some isolated tornadoes in Illinois, Mississippi, and Alabama. All included 9 EF0s, 12 EF1s, 1 EF2, and several EFUs, unknown or unranked. One of the EF1 tornadoes passed through Gaithersburg, Maryland, damaging numerous homes and injuring 5 people. An additional EF1 tornado caused damage in Columbia, Arbutus, and Hallithorpe, Michigan. These tornadoes caused notable damage to homes, vehicles, businesses, and infrastructure.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they kind of skip over the tornadoes they had in Michigan on that day. The thing is, though, they didn't really do a whole lot of damage.
Yeah, a lot of these were very...
Michigan kind of lucked out.
Were those quick spin-ups this year. I noticed that they'd be on the ground maybe for a couple of minutes and then they were gone. Again, that's a good thing. My birthday was a good year this year because there are several states impacted by tornadoes, including Nebraska, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts.
Is that the 25th or the 26th?
25th and 26th, yeah. Here's the interesting thing, and I kind of remember I did a little reading on this one. Basically, they were really widely scattered. In other words, you had some in Nebraska and Iowa, and then all of a sudden you jump over to on the 26th, you jump over to Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
This is a fast-moving system that went through the Midwest really quickly. Again, on June 25th, an EF3 tornado hit Whitman, Nebraska, and surrounding area. It was the first strong tornado to impact Grant County, Nebraska, in more than 70 years.
That's pretty remarkable.
That is incredible because how many tornadoes Nebraska gets every year. On the 26th, the tornado that impacted Providence County, Rhode Island, was the first June tornado reported in that state since 1950.
Of course, Rhode Island is pretty small.
Yeah.
Tornadoes miss that teeny
They
place.
do. In fact, they turn around and go, we missed that. Well, we're back out of the ocean. We can't do
back out of the
anything."
old ocean.
Meanwhile, Bristol County, Massachusetts saw 2 tornadoes, tying its record for the most tornadoes in a day in a year. The tornadoes damaged roofs and snapped uprooted trees, with thousands of trees likely damaged by one of the tornadoes. Other tornadoes in southwestern Pennsylvania. So,
Not a great day for trees.
trees are real susceptible. It's like for some reason, tornado hits a tree falls down. I'm just stating physics.
It seems odd.
July, usually in July, it kind of starts to back off a little bit.
But this is when this is when the hurricanes.
Oh, here we go,
arrive.
kids.
In fact, July was the month that Beryl arrived, and caused a major league tornado outbreak. One of the bigger hurricane-spawned outbreaks we've seen in a while. But July itself was also reasonably busy. 25 of the 31 days in July had at least one reported tornado.
It's incredible.
On July 8th, this is the outbreak with Hurricane Beryl. 58 tornadoes across eastern Texas, northern Louisiana, and southern Arkansas. The Shreveport National Weather Service office issued a record-breaking 67 tornado warnings, the most in a single day for that particular office. Tornadoes continued to develop as Beryl moved off north. July 9th and 10th, 19 additional tornadoes impacting Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and New York. 77 tornadoes during that multi-day outbreak. The month's next outbreak was on the 15th. This one was not related to a hurricane, surprisingly enough. This was the big outbreak that affected Chicago.
Oh, this was a wild day.
Which was
a
wild day for them. They had tornadoes going across the airport. They had tornadoes going across the city. I think the most amazing thing about that is, considering that they had 32 tornadoes in the Chicago area, there were no fatalities.
Yes.
And surprisingly, not a horrendous amount of damage, although there was damage to, homes, vehicles, businesses, vegetation, and other infrastructure. Incredibly, no airplanes were sucked up, even though a tornado basically went right across Midway.
Yeah, fortunately, most of them, I think the strongest were EF2s. I don't think there's anything stronger than that in that outbreak, but still, it is rare in July that you get tornadoes in that part of the country.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Really
and that many.
Yeah, that many. 32 tornadoes in the Chicago area, which is just mind-blowing. And, I mean, Chicago is a large area. The whole metro area is huge.
The metro area
is
gigantic. But still, that's just
July?
crazy.
Yeah.
I remember I have relations I have relatives who live in Chicago, so I was watching that with a great deal of interest, obviously.
Well, I do, too, because we have friends involved in a music band that we're friends with, and their area... I remember saying, "Hey, Gary, just want to let you know we're okay, but man, the winds came whipping through here, and it just was nuts." He said, "A lot of some roof damage and some power outages and everything." He said the thing was basically where they were. Said we just got incredible rains. And he says we had he said, "Gary, I know you're a weather geek. So we had something like 3 inches of rain in about a 6-hour period, which for Chicago, that's a lot of rain.
Oh yeah, that's a
lot of rain.
Yeah.
They had flooding and everything.
Really, that's a lot for any place.
Yeah, but he said otherwise we're all safe. He says, but man, he said that'll wake you up when it comes rumbling through there. I said, oh yeah. If you ain't paying, if you're trying to rest, you'll get woken up. Now we move from July into the fall, and of course,
and Hurricane Little Debbie.
Yep, and Little Debbie's came out, and Little Debbie's created a lot of tornadoes.
Yeah, another big tornado outbreak from a hurricane.
Gee, really? I'm surprised. Let's talk about some of the things that we've got. Hurricane Debbie made its second landfall along coastal Carolina on August the 6th, and that area, dozens of tornadoes were impacted that area. Debbie made a second landfall at that area. Tornadoes were leveled homes and damaged vehicles, including a school. The remnants of Debbie continued to move slowly inland and up the East Coast, producing more tornadoes, damage, and loss of life across North Carolina. On August 7th, an EF2 caused significant damage in Sampson City, North Carolina. Multiple homes had roofing and siding ripped off, windows destroyed, hardwood trees up to 2 feet in diameter
Now,
snapped.
that's pretty impressive.
That is definitely impressive. You know, it may have been stronger than EF2 because I think it usually takes a lot more wind to bring those up.
You'd think.
Another EF2 caused significant damage in the community of Snow Hill and Greene County, North Carolina, in the early mornings of the 8th. EF3 also touched down in Wilson County, causing major damage in the town of Lucuma. This is only the third EF3 tornado associated with the tropical system in North Carolina since 1950.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
No reported injuries, but just one fatality. And tropical storm depression Debbie continues. Favorable conditions for tornado development on August 8th as 11 tornadoes formed across Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. The tornado damaged homes, vehicles, businesses, and other infrastructure. If you remember, that was the era. That thing just kind of sat there for a couple of days.
It did, yeah, and rained and rained.
And
spawned little twisters.
Yeah,
and
twisters and everything. Yeah,
and then, of course,
irritating.
And then, of course, it got kind of quiet.
Yeah, but then again, it didn't last long.
But it didn't last tremendously long because in late September we had Hurricane Helene.
Oh, and this was a mess.
This was absolutely. Tornadoes caused impacts in eastern Georgia, the southern and eastern South Carolina, southern Virginia, and across the western, central, and eastern regions of North Carolina. I tell you, North Carolina took some nasty hits this year.
It was a bad year for those people.
It was a bad year. An EF1 tornado near the town of Blowing Rock on the evening of the 25th was, I think, about the first significant tornado out of that group.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest one, the strongest tornado, was an EF3 that caused significant damage in the town of Rocky Mount, North Carolina. This was the second EF3 tornado to touch down in Wilson County in the last 2 months, including the previous one that occurred with Hurricane Debbie on August the 8th. Numerous homes, vehicles, buildings, and infrastructure were destroyed. An EF2 also touched down in Pittsylvania County in south central Virginia. Dozens of homes and vehicles damaged from this tornado. On September 25th, I'm not sure this one was associated with Helene or not, but severe storms in West Virginia produced Pocahontas County's first tornado since records began in 1950.
Yeah, the thing this year that I noticed, Sue, is when you look back at some of these stats, even when we were reporting on them, they were occurring in a lot of areas of the country that usually don't get a lot of tornadoes.
That's kind of interesting, and I'm not sure why that was, but we'll
the tropical systems obviously played a big part of it, but still, it's amazing when you think that places that normally don't get tornadoes any time of year got socked pretty good with a couple of significant storms during the summer months, and of course October, and
Milton.
Oh, Milton! This was I tell you, Sue, usually we check the weather forecast and we look at everything. Oh yeah, that's what's happening. But when I started hearing about the tornadoes in Florida from Milton, I was very intrigued by it because these are well away from the storm itself.
Yes, they were.
And of course, we had 5 EFUs, 8 EF0s, 24 EF1s, 6 EF2s, and 3 EF3 tornadoes in Florida from October 9th to the early hours of October 10th. 46 tornadoes.
Yeah, totally crazy.
From Milton, yeah. And that was an incredible. And I saw a video of a lot of those, and I mean they were significant. They weren't little spin-ups. Yeah. In fact, sadly, the strongest tornado in Florida was an EF3, estimated the winds of 155 miles an hour that killed 6 people in a mobile home community near Fort Pierce in South Lucci County in Florida. 2 other EF3s touched down in South Florida, specifically Glades and Palm Beach County. These tornadoes destroyed numerous homes, businesses, and other infrastructure. Yeah. I just remember that because I just was transfixed watching the live, some of the storm chasers feeding that information live. Mm-hmm. And then you saw a later video, and it was like, these were impressive storms. These were not little white funnels. These were black, dark funnels with the big wall cloud above them and everything else. It was
They did a lot of damage, and of course Milton in general did a lot of damage to Florida before it continued on up into Georgia and North Carolina,
Carolinas, and
places like that I don't think had much of a tornado outbreak, but boy, did they get a lot of rain.
I'm telling you, it was the whole system, one after another, going right up almost the same path.
Almost the same path, and
just made the tragedy a lot worse.
Made it a lot worse, and then of course it was quiet again until the year-ending event.
That's right.
December 26th through 29th. 86 preliminary reports that tracked across Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South, and yes, North Carolina again. Yes. Mm-hmm. The damage produced from these tornadoes rated as 39 EF0s, 59 EF2s, 59 EF1s, 3 EF2s, 3 EF3s, and a number that were not able to be rated. Again, a lot of damage, and in one place, there was at least one fatality. Right,
and December 28th was the peak day of that outbreak when you have, let's see here, several EF3 tornadoes impacting Chambers, Jefferson, Cameron, and Montgomery counties in East Texas. These tornadoes also damaged numerous homes, buildings, out vehicles, and businesses. An EF3 tornado also impacted Franklin and Lincoln counties in Mississippi, causing considerable damage. In total, the number of tornadoes, the 26th to 29th, caused at least 12 injuries and 1 fatality.
Yeah, so it was a big tornado year. Interestingly enough, in some ways, it was kind of a curious year in that there were a lot of tornadoes, number 2, and since they've been keeping records. Fortunately, the fatalities were under 60.
Yeah, and that was really a lot of people. I was surprised that toll was so low. I'm thankful, but I was surprised because usually when you have the tornadoes like they had, you usually expect many more fatalities.
I think a lot of people were paying attention, and that's a very good thing.
Well, they've learned to be weather-wise, and when you have a hurricane coming and things like that, you're going to normally, the antenna is going to go up to keep an eye open and everything. And in fact, you're looking at this. I believe the state with the most deaths, it looks like Florida, with 8 deaths there, along with Oklahoma.
Texas had 9.
Had 9. Okay, but those are the top 3. The top 3 ones. Yeah, Oklahoma, Florida, and Texas.
And Texas was number 1 with 169 reported tornadoes.
Ooh.
Iowa 2 with 131 reported tornadoes. Nebraska also had 131 tornadoes, so they basically tied for second.
Okay.
Then Illinois with 126, Missouri 105, Florida 103, most on that one day.
Yes.
92 in Louisiana, 91 in Oklahoma. To see Oklahoma that far down is kind of surprising. Kansas had 89, and Ohio had 82, which was our biggest tornado year ever.
And the last one, I believe, was December 29th, am I right? All right. I think it was.
I think you're right. It was very late in the year.
Yeah, it was very late, and it was an EF0, but I believe that's what it was. So, again, Ohio finishes in the top 10.
That's right. Ohio was in the top 10.
That's right. That's a stat you don't want to be parading, but anyway, we're number 10. We're number 10. But again, Texas outbreak, Beryl had a lot to do with that. And you look at Florida, Milton did its number there. Louisiana, probably a lot of that due to Beryl and other storms like that. As we see the storms move across the parts of the country, that unfortunately, whether it's severe weather or rain or whatever, over and over and over again this year, the weather patterns became very locked.
Yeah, they must have been very tired in North Carolina after a while.
Yeah.
They're probably still tired. I can't blame them.
Yeah, and, in Florida and other places have had horrific storms over the year, and some more damage than others, but still a record number of tornadoes. We had not a record number of hurricanes, but the hurricanes we had were close to record breakers because of the structure and the winds and the damage they did. And of course, Helene, now we know that's the worst natural disaster in American history. That is number 1.
Wow, number 1. So that's actually beaten out some of the previous number 1s.
Yes, because of the widespread damage and the amount of damage that's in the. I believe that they said it's almost. I thought it was. It's over $100 billion.
That would not surprise me because there's just so much infrastructure, especially in North Carolina, that's having to be basically completely reinvented.
So when you put all that together, you come up with this thing. It's like it was a rough year for tornadoes. How it looks for 2025, we'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment because some climate groups have put together some forecasts for the year. But Sue, again, a lot of damage. Some of the damage totals are incredible. You look at the yearly damage, and it's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Again. We've had several years like that, where just over and over again we get these damage reports. Now, we talked a little about, real quickly, we'll close on this. We talked about the forecast that's come out where they predict, how many storms, and they believe it's going to be an above active year again, right around that 1,800 mark. They think. Of course, it varies with the weather patterns and everything, but they're expecting it could be another active tornado year. Now, last year was an El Nino that caused issues with the jet stream and caused these outbreaks. But now we're in a strong La Nina pattern, which means the temperatures in the Pacific flip from east to west as far as warm air. So they're saying that this could be built up to, a pretty significant tornado outbreak, because the forecast for the spring, Sue, has basically everything east of the Rockies above normal warmth and above normal precipitation.
And of course, the real danger with that is we are going into what may be a very serious tornado year with a very crippled National Weather Service. Right. Yeah, the National Weather Service is going through some major changes, and we are going to talk about that down the road. We're going to be talking about that. Yeah, I don't think this is really political. I think this is a bipartisan issue, frankly, and should be. And we will talk about that down the road, because it could have significant impact on everybody. Yeah, I'm really, really concerned about radar coverage, balloon launches, and, of course, who in the world is going to be looking at the damage pads? That's right. You have all these things that are in play right now. Everybody's saying nothing is sacred, and we'll see what happens. But my concern is that, again, we're looking at some areas that are going to be impacted by severe weather that have been impacted over and over again, like they need anything more. But again, the Midwest, though, just looking at that prediction this morning, so again, it's not set in stone. Yeah, again, a big concern for Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and everything. There could be a fairly significant tornado year again. We don't know, because it could turn around and be absolutely quiet all year, but I don't think it's going to happen. We're going to wrap up with this: that it looks like a significant severe weather event could be occurring later this week in the southeast, especially Tuesday and Wednesday. As we're taping, it's starting to look like Mardi Gras, maybe more than just parties and beads and everything stuff like that. This could be another severe weather day. There's also the opportunity, but also the chance that could repeat next weekend. Again, that's 7 days out, so you can't say anything for sure. But what is concerning to most forecasters could be the lack of people to report on the weather, but also the fact is some of this weather is going to be basically bubbling very quickly. Even today, they've backed off on some of the thoughts about severe weather on Tuesday as to how they know it's going to be severe weather. How widespread the tornadoes are going to be is going to be that's something they're still working on. And I think it just takes a moment to just say, when we talk about they're doing these forecasts, and again, we say the word forecast, is you've got they're putting this information together, but something happens either way. Can turn a forecast into a bust, or could turn it into, that's way more than we thought we were going to get. Yeah, the weather is just inherently chaotic. Yeah, it really is, and so it's going to be chaotic Tuesday and Wednesday this week, and maybe by next weekend it could be re-ramping up. So, in fact, there's even a chance of severe weather in Oklahoma and parts of Texas tomorrow. Yeah, and of course you'll hear it right here on Twister Talk. We'll let you know what's going on. Yeah. We'll say hide, run, or you're okay. So they'll be your coach words. So you remember those. That's right. If you hear those, then we're serious, right? Do we have a safe word? Safe word is send us money. No, there you go. I like that. Cash only. Cash only. But anyway, again, there's a wrap up of tornadoes for 2024. Yay. So anyway, hey, don't forget to join us this coming month. We've got some special shows remembering the 100th anniversary of the 1925 Tri-State tornado. Still the deadliest tornado in American history, with 695 lives lost. We'll also talk about some of the tornadoes that occurred that same day. Yep. It wasn't just one tornado, there were several, and some of them also caused death. And we'll talk more about that in the forecasting tools. We also have a great interview coming up. We'll be talking to Angela Mason starting later this week on the Twister Talk. Her interview about her book, Death Rides the Sky. Oh, incredible! And you'll enjoy hearing her talk about it. But we really hope and encourage you to go out and get a copy of the book. Yeah, it's worth reading. It is good reading. We've read it, and it was very engrossing. Drew you right in, and the tales that are told to her as she records these eyewitness accounts of the tornadoes, like
Man, you got to read them because they're really that good. So,
Oh, yeah.
man, we thank Angela for joining us. There's where we at tornado-wise.
Yeah.
Gary's.
Whoop, I hit the wrong button. Did I
Gary hit the wrong button.
I hit the wrong button.
Oh, man. I'm
That's
supposed
the
to
other
do
wrong
that.
button. Let's see. How about this one?
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
That's kind of our easy listening music.
I tell you, folks, if there's any way, we have to have a technical gaffe or it's not Twister Talk. So
That's right.
We're done. For Twister Talk, I'm Gary.
I'm Sue.
Talk to you later.